Back-to-back champs, man. Feels great. Dream job.
You smell that?
Oh, dude. Championship celebration ruined. You better fix that. I called 6-8 flush. We need Cellino plumbing.
Champions use their tools wisely. Quick wrist action like scoring that game-winning goal.
Maybe plumbing is our dream job.
Only on Team Cellino.
Start with the pros first. Cellino Plumbing, Heating, Cooling. Always championship ready.
Folks, welcome in. We are not worried about ruining any championship celebrations. We are here for the pod. Woo! The Banditos pod, and that is celebrating a dub. Gatesy, it feels like it has been a fortnight times two, because it basically has been since our last W, but the Banditos get back in the win column, and it feels a little better. It feels like the heat's off the back of our necks for a second here.
Yeah, it just felt like each loss kept compounding. It just kept getting like worse and worse and worse. It's like, are we going to see the light at the end of this tunnel? But then, you just have the Buffalo Bandits, a team that's been there, that's done that, that's going through a bit of a rough patch, but they got a big win against Halifax. And, there's still a lot of season left. And it's not like, after this point they're done. They can get some wins. They can get back in it. And, but that last win was very much needed after the past month and a half.
Speaking of very much needed, folks, you might have something around your house that's very much in need of the expert service and text from Cellino Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electric. So give them a call at 6-8 flush. If you're looking for that championship caliber service. We got Ike Castro chiming in. He says he's a Bandits fan from Brazil. What's up, Ike? We got Alexis Liz on Instagram. But Gatesy, like we were saying, it was a little bit of a rough patch there, and that was something we're not used to in recent Banditos history. They've made it very easy on us as fans. But before we get into the overall of it, the Halifax bounce back that we had this past weekend, I'm curious, when you look at it, what were you seeing from the Banditos during that 4-game skid? Was it anything identifiable? And before we get into it, what was sticking out most to you?
Yeah, I mean, you look at just the course of the Bandits season. I'm not going to say anything revolutionary, but when the Bandits don't score 10 goals, they are 0-4 on the season. And all of their wins this season, only one of them, or out of all the games they've scored 10 goals, they've won all of them except for one. So when this Bandits team, if they're getting scoring from their offense, they're going to be winning games. That's not some sort of revolutionary take. But this Bandits team, that Colorado game where they lost 20-9, that is a complete outlier and something you can't really think about because that game happens once in a millennium for this Bandits team. We look at the rest, they're close games. It's not like the Bandits were getting their breaks beaten off every single week. That Colorado game, yes, but the rest, they're close games. They're not getting that extra scoring we've seen, from previous years, and even the start of the season when the Bandits were winning games, 15-11, they were getting a lot of scoring. It's kind of dried up just a little bit, so I'm excited to see as the season goes on if their veteran scorers can find that groove again.
Yeah, it's very funny because when the Banditos obviously got that three-peat last year, we were excited because it was that they proved they could do something that the Kansas City Chiefs couldn't. But the ironic thing to me is that this kind of reminds me that recent skid of the Kansas City Chiefs this past season when they kind of ran into some more bumps in the road. They're still getting everybody's best shot. Obviously, people have the Banditos circled on their calendar from the moment they see it on their schedule till the moment that that ball is dropped in the arena. But it just felt like they were maybe squeezing it a little bit. I don't think that they've lost any of the magic juju that makes it work. I still think that they've shown this season they can get it done in a multitude of ways. I think Matt Vince has still looked as solid as ever. I mean, I'm sure the numbers, they're 0-4 when Mitch is not on the field too. See, Mitch is linchpin. Yes. See, that's who I need. That's what we're going to get to very shortly, by the way, the Snoo of it all. But yeah, that was and again, that even gives you more confidence when you see a player like that return and they're able to lock it a little bit more down on the defensive side of things, Gatesy. So that's the thing, is that we were getting contributions from our McKays, we're getting contributions from our Deogas, and Dhane and Josh aren't going anywhere. So as much as we were seeing a lot of frustrating stuff, didn't that almost make it tougher that it was like, you knew this wasn't the Banditos we're used to? Come on, you knew they were better than that, just like they showed this most recent week.
Definitely. And I think it'd be absurd to think that this Bandits team is just going to roll over and die the rest of the season, that, that 4-game stretch missing to Snoo was going to be how they were the whole season. You look at the Bandits last year, like Maniac, we had that stretch towards the end of the season where, the Bandits were losing games. They weren't looking as sharp. And, we're having a lot of questions. Is this team, going to falter in the postseason? Are they not going to be able to do it? Has their, at that point, two-peat magic, run out? have a lot of season left for the Bandits. I think there's a lot that fans can look forward to. That that stretch they saw wasn't this real team. I think they've proven time and time again when lacrosse matters the most, they're going to bring their A game, get a long regular season. I think as the season goes on, games get a little tighter. We're going to see this Bandits team hopefully convert a little bit more, get their opportunities, and turn these 1-goal losses into 2-3-goal wins.
100%. I think you made a great point that outside of that Colorado game, it really has just been some of those closer ones. Again, it just goes back to years past. You're so used to the Banditos finding a way to get it done, finding a way to overcome all that adversity, and that's a natural part of sports, so it's not surprising. We'll get into the recent result against Halifax. Gatesy, obviously, this looked like, a lot of this was good. A lot of this was something you take home and it's a win, and you always take a win. You never take that for granted. There were a couple pockets in here where I believe they were up 8-3, and then it became like an 8-7, 8-8 game. So things got a lot tighter there. You hate to see the Banditos not be able to come out of the second half strong and put an opponent like Halifax away. But on the flip side of things, you're getting great defense. You're obviously allowing a little bit less than you had been on average for the season. And that leads us to kind of the culmination of everything. We get late in the game, and we get a penalty on Mitch Snoo, which honestly, like Gatesy, I could have fired the ref into the sun when this happened, because it was just, I think he called him for hooking when on a play where Mitch Snoo essentially picked the offensive player's pocket and had the ball going back the other way.
Yeah, I mean, the bright side you can take from that, Maniac, too, is when the game gets like that, you have the Snoo go to the box, a guy who we said earlier is 0-4 when he's not on the on the field for the Bandits, that they were able to just get the win after that was my biggest takeaway from Halifax. But I want to hear your reaction to that penalty call and just everything that was going through your mind of like, oh, is this going to be 5 in a row for the Bandits? What was going through your mind?
Oh, first off, I definitely, if you remember, Slick and I went to wrestling night last year at the arena, and they just had a similar thing where they had a penalty late, and that was essentially what cost them the game. So it was just brutal, absolutely devastating. I hate to say it. It's just the Buffalo sports fan in me. All of a sudden you see that you're going to be in trouble late, or that there might be some adversity that you need to overcome. And I hate to say it, but that's just too much for me. As based on what I've seen from the Sabres, UB, Bills, obviously. But I'm still growing used to this Bandits culture. The Bandits find a way. I don't know exactly what happened here, Gatesy. I think we got caught in the 4-on-4, like pre-penalty part of it, because we have Dhane and Josh on the floor. Mm-hmm. They make a quick combo play. All of a sudden, Dhane's got it in front. He's got his 4th shorthanded goal of the year. Had 3 for his entire career coming into this season. So it definitely seems like there's more of clearly he's playing more or finding himself out there more on the shorthanded opportunities. But it just felt like poetry in motion seeing Dhane make that play.
Definitely, and that's such a big thing too for the Bandits. If you're getting Dhane Smith, on the PK scoring goals, you're looking at a team that's probably have to dig a little bit deeper than we've seen maybe in previous years to get to the level they were at. So if you're having a guy like Dhane Smith, who somehow year after year is having a career year, that's always in the MVP races, he's killing penalties for you now. He's doing things, and he scores when he's needed most. You have a tie game after, kind of losing that lead in the 4th quarter. And then who else but Dhane Smith gets the Bandits in the lead. They're able to survive and get that win. But, you're going to look over the course of the season. I think by the time the season's done, we can look back at some games that are hopefully a turning point for the Bandits. This one here, where they're able to break that 4-game skid, get that win. It's such a big thing. And that goal from Dhane is, the reason to do it. And, it's just been a great run as of late for number 92.
Number 92 has not, with all credit to the dad's strength of it all, which obviously played a role, he has picked up exactly where he left off in the past decade, like you said. It's been a little bit of growing pains and everything like that, though, for the Banditos. Again, this was kind of a must-win over Halifax. Halifax going into the game was 3-5. So were the Banditos. So whoever lost that game was going to find a way to be 3-6 and at the bottom of the NLL standings. Now, instead, the Banditos are 4-5. And they're essentially 2 games out of the 4th spot. Who's in the 4th spot? The Vancouver Warriors, who will play tomorrow. So we'll get to that in a bit. By the way, quick shout out to Mr. Snoo, Mitch's better half, following the Banditos pod and also chiming in that was the worst penalty call she's ever seen. I love a woman. Behind every strong man is a strong woman. We know that for a fact. With that said, I know Mitch isn't Gatesy, but are you worried about this Banditos squad as we get into – we're basically at the halfway point of the year now, just a little bit past it. But are you worried about this Bandito squad now that you've seen a full body of work out of them? You've seen a lot of close games. There's been some close wins, some close losses. I'm curious how you're breaking it down when it comes to the orange and black and purple.
Yeah, and purple. It's hard not to be a little worried and concerned with the Bandits where, they're not where they're at in previous seasons. We saw, a skid in a length that we haven't really ever seen before, at least in recent memory. So it's hard not to be concerned with that, but there's always a part of me when you're talking about this Buffalo Bandits team with the players that they have on it, that they're going to figure it out. They're going to play their best lacrosse when it matters most. The stretch here is going to be a big one where, you get that win over Vancouver and suddenly you go from basically being in the very bottom of the NLL standings to now you're talking playoffs just like that. So that's what makes me feel good. You see Nanakoke get to last game. You're seeing your depth guys chip in. You're going to get Josh Byrne, Dhane Smith. They're going to be them. You're going to, have Matt Vince be Matt Vince when the time's right. This team's going to come together when the time's there. I'm not super worried, but it's definitely my brain's a little more active on the negative side than I ever thought it could be about these Bandits.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you've just seen more, they're, with all due respect, Colorado that was a revenge spot for them. We beat them a couple years ago in the Miles. The Banditos of the best couple of years, they just don't let that happen, Gatesy. So that was a little bit concerning. But I think you go back to those core tenets that we talked about. You've got your Vince playing well. The defense seems to be playing better with Mitch Snoo. So we know that they're 0-4 when Mitch Snoo doesn't play. So that means when he does play, they're 4-1. So that's a pretty good body of work with Mitch Snoo in the lineup if we can keep him healthy. Yeah, I mean, let's face it. I think we all know that last year, the reason we won that title, with all due respect to the Vince of it all, the Joshes and the Danes, was that Chase Frazier and TJ Cloutier, TJ Cloutier, he's a poker guy, Kluch. They, were playing out of their mind. Now, again, are we getting that from McKay and Nantico? Yes, but are we going to get that from Scanlon? Are we going to get those rare plays from my guy Priolo, 23, the captain back there? I know, he's not going to be lighting up the scoreboard, but we need one every so often. That's the difference on whether we can make it a 4P. Because when you ask me about the Banditos, am I worried? No, I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to find a way to get to the postseason, even though they have obviously Vancouver this week and then next week Saskatchewan. So two of the top 4 teams in the NLL coming up. So I wouldn't say next week is a must win, but Vancouver might be a must win as well. Again, I'm not worried about the playoffs. I'm not worried about the Banditos. Am I worried about a 4P? Yeah, 100%. I'm not saying it's on life support by any means, but you've got to find a way to get in that groove because you just can't consistently survive those close games 3 to 4 minutes to go, especially if you're going to have to be playing on the road, which could be the case for these Banditos. Gatesy.
Definitely. And when you look at playoffs too, it's really much just a matter of getting in. We saw, was it 2 years ago, the Bandits were on the ropes in round 1. OT. Yeah. So it really is just kind of getting to the dance. And then from there, what team makes it? And you look at the body.
Survive in advance once you get in for sure. And the thing we always say, Gates, it doesn't matter what league you're playing in. Anybody want to play the 3-time defending champs with most of their core still intact in the postseason? I don't think so.
And having to go to Bandit Land, no one wants to do that. So that's what's easing my mind a bit is, you just got to get to the playoffs and go from there because, that round 1 is just one game. Then you have some short series after. It's very much, what team gets hot, who can, win the playoffs. And we've seen the Buffalo Bandits can win in the playoffs. So that's at least easing on my end of things.
The one thing I will say that we didn't go on about a lot last year or in the offseason, I would say that at this point in the season, Dhane and Josh are as healthy or more healthy than they were at this point last season. So there's little wins you can take for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Josh Byrne is he going to be able to play this game? And he was always out there. So the fact that he's where he's at now, keep him through that stretch. And having a healthy Josh Byrne and Dhane Smith is, a win's always on the table for the Bandits.
Most definitely. Speaking of a win being on the table, Gatesy, that's what we're gonna need tomorrow night. We've got. So, do we want to go with Banditos after dark or Friday night Banditos?
Well, I mean, we might have to do an
I
after
guess they're
dark.
both they both play, but I didn't want to steal the Sabres after dark. I know a lot of people love that one, but obviously, like I said, we got the Vancouver Warriors, the fourth ranked team currently in the NLL. Gatesy, this is a team that's found a number of ways to get done. I mean, you talk about close wins. They've won games 11-10, 8-6. But they really have avoided the one thing all year. They haven't had a losing streak. They lost their last game to Saskatchewan, obviously the number one team in the NLL. A 9-8 loss, by the way. Not exactly, a poor showing. But we've got rock and roll night at Rogers Arena in Vancouver, Gatesy, tomorrow night. Do you think that the Banditos will be able to get it done and hand Vancouver their first losing streak of the season?
Well, my whole prediction's out the window now that I know it's rock and roll night in Vancouver. I don't know how you expect to go into anyone's barn on rock and roll night and expect to win, but this game's going to be interesting because you look at these two teams, they basically have the same amount of goals for this season. Vancouver just has 2 more, but Vancouver has over 20 less goals against. We see this Bandits team obviously find success when they're scoring more. We've seen it on that losing skid. They weren't scoring as much. So you have a Vancouver team that's better defensively. Let's see if the Bandits can score. I mean, this is a big test here. You said you have Saskatchewan after. You're going to want the Bandits to at least get 1 win on the stretch. Losing 2 would be, I would almost say, detrimental because at that point, you've lost 6 of your last 7 if that happens. So this seems like the more winnable of the 2. And I'm excited to see how the Bandits can build off that win against Halifax.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see whether we get the 4-5 Banditos or we get the 4-1 with Mitch Snoo in the lineup Banditos. But either way, it should be a good one tomorrow night in Vancouver. Just our final thoughts. It's interesting because typically we wrap up a bunch of stuff and we got a lot of things to catch up on. This is our first time kind of checking in. So shout out everybody with the Banditos faithful riding along with us. Very excited for this 4th season. Seems like some good weather on the horizon as well. So maybe we'll get some nice tailgating outside of Banditland Gates. It could be a great spring ahead.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things last year was doing the live show in the plaza before the game. Excited for that. Hopefully we can get Cowboy Don back out there and
Sheriff Don.
Hopefully we can all come together because it'll be an interesting stretch here for the Bandits. And, as we said, just got to get to the postseason. So do what you got to do to get to that point. And then from that point, it's anyone's game.
Yeah, I think you go out and you do what you've done. That's the good news, is that they can just go out and do exactly what the Banditos do tomorrow in Vancouver and hopefully make it 2 wins in a row. So huge shout out. It's always a win when you tune in with us on the Banditos pod. A huge shout out to the championship level sponsor, Cellino Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electric, getting it all done, getting all the jobs done, just like the Banditos get the job done on the field with their 3-peat and counting. Gatesy, why don't you sign us off?
Well, there's only one thing we have to say. When you join the POD, the pod, woo, let's go
Bandits.
Bandits.
Banditos.